Good evening. Am I audible?
Yes, sir. Clearly audible.
Thank you.
Uh, so can we start the session?
Yes, thank you. I was waiting for the prompt. So, good evening, everyone. A warm welcome to everybody who's taken out 1 hour of uh, Friday evening to discuss our current educational system and what is it that we can possibly do to improve. Um, My name is Sanjeev Chaitani. I'm 53, based in Mumbai. I spent 27 years in the corporate sector. I quit about 4.5 years back to become a full-time counselor and a therapist. That's what I do now, since I'm a psychologist. And I interact extensively with teachers, parents, as part of um, my current role, the hat that I wear as a counselor and a therapist. So what I propose is there's a small presentation that I would like to run you through. And let's take about 20-25 minutes to go through the presentation and whatever it is that I would like to share with you. And once we are done with that, I would open this forum to a question and answer session, because I think it's very important that as many questions as we can possibly answer, those get clarified in the short time that we have. I understand we have exactly 1 hour from 6:30 to 7:30. So we'll try and make it as meaningful and as productive as possible. Will I be able to share the presentation now? Am I the co-host?
Yes, sir. You can share the screen.
Is the screen visible?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. So the topic today is challenges for teachers from everyday life. Essentially, I'll be breaking up about 10 different topics under 4 subheads. And we will go through each slide, which will have about 2 or 3 points. We spend about 8 or 10 minutes on each slide. And then we will have question and answer sessions. Feel free to interrupt me if you need any clarifications. My only request is that any questions related to this content may be kept for the last half an hour. So we have a flow going. So the first topic is the current educational system, the framework as it exists from a teacher's perspective. I guess most of you all are from this background and you are in some way related to educational institutions or teaching or imparting some kind of content in your day-to-day lives. It is important to evaluate where we stand as far as the existing system is concerned. The methodology, how is knowledge, as we would like to call it, how is knowledge imparted? What are the metrics that we use to measure achievement? In the good old days, when I say the good old days, I'm going back probably a few decades back, maybe over a century. The educational system, the methodology was essentially imparting knowledge one to many. In a lot of ways, it used to be the way it is today. One teacher, many students. However, what's different now and has been for the last few decades is the focus on rote learning. Essentially, memorizing without really understanding or spending time on ensuring that students understand what they are being taught. The emphasis is very strongly on rote learning, memorizing, because the current philosophy of the educational system is if you can remember whatever is taught to you, you will be able to recollect when required. And that's the whole purpose of education, which may or may not be entirely true. We'll come to that later. Again, the metrics to measure achievement. The emphasis currently is on who is able to memorize the best, who's able to reproduce whatever has been taught in the most efficient manner. So somebody who, let's say, is gifted with an exceptionally good memory is sometimes treated as the most brilliant, which may or may not necessarily be the case. But what's happening here is, and this is where we come to the second point, we are missing the point of the purpose of education. What is the purpose of education? Is the purpose of education to get students to simply memorize, which happens in the vast majority of schools, including private schools, not just government schools? Or is the purpose of education to arouse curiosity and ignite the spark of learning in the child so that the child is interested and gets interested and wants to learn? And that's the difference. Getting the child interested so that the child wants to learn instead of forcing it down the child's throat and saying, this is what you need to memorize. We come to another related point, which is the quality of curriculum. The curriculum has been more or less fairly static for the last many decades. It's of course in the process of being revamped, as we all know, but it is simply going to be edited and updated. The curriculum still is largely centered around content, not exploration. This is the content, this is what you need to learn. It's not, as many of us would prefer, centered around, let's learn this today, probably through practical means, probably through starting from the scratch, doing it yourself. None of those things, unfortunately, exist in our educational system today. The third point, which again is a part of the problem, not the problem, but a part of the problem, which is expectations from the management. Educational institutions are run by people, some people who are highly qualified, extremely competent, they know what they're doing. At least on paper, they know what they're doing. And in some cases, unfortunately, educational institutions are run purely on commercial basis by people who are more of businessmen rather than educators. And the management, in most cases, again, is focused on, we want 100% passing result, we want top scorers, we have no time, we have no patience for children who probably are not so privileged, who are challenged, who probably come from difficult backgrounds, or are simply unable to cope with the learning system. These children get sidelined. These children get, I know I'm using a strong word, discarded, which is quite sad. Moving on to the next topic, we are also seeing increasing percentage of attention disorders in children. They are extremely distracted thanks to all the digital devices that are available. And the last 2 years of pandemic made things really, really difficult, because this is all that parents could do, provide digital devices to the children so that they would stay busy and they would get them to keep their minds occupied. Now, digital devices, unfortunately, are not meant for children whose brains are developing. And this is something that's medically proven. The development of brain takes about from the age of 3 to the age of 12 is the prime period where the brain is developing, and it develops at its own pace. Now, what happens is when you give a 4-year-old child a mobile phone or an iPad or even TV for that matter, which is why in a lot of homes in Europe, some countries of Europe, children are not allowed to watch TV till the age of 10. There's a very strong scientific reason behind it. What happens is when the brain is developing, the number of neurons in the brain are multiplying. Right? That's how the brain develops. The synapses form connections. You have more and more brain cells that get formed. The brain has a limited capacity to absorb stimulus from the external environment. So because the brain has limited capacity to absorb, it also has limited capacity to process information. So the cognitive process is not as rapid as it is in our case. The speed at which we read, the speed at which we talk is much, much slower in case of a 4-year or a 5-year-old child. Now, what happens is when the child is looking at the screen, which is flickering at a very high speed, because there's no smooth motion, as you know. We may see a video, but the video is essentially a very fast moving series of still images. Now, the brain is suddenly shocked with very fast moving images, which it is not prepared for, because it's still growing, it's still developing. So it tries to catch up. It tries to catch up, it tries to process. So what happens is the development of the brain, instead of happening in a very normal, organic way, it starts developing in a very different way, in a very unhealthy, different way, and the development is accelerated. It doesn't happen at the pace it is supposed to happen. So there's a spike. The brain is forced to develop at a much faster rate, because of which the development is not even. The development is not even because the brain is trying to cope with so much of stimulus, which it is not prepared for. So the end result is there's a constant need to maintain a certain level of stimulation. Now the brain is used to a certain level of stimulation. And the moment you take the mobile phone away from a child, the child throws a tantrum and parents get upset. No, you are done with your screen time. Now go back to your studies. Won't work, because now the brain has been excited to a point where it needs that stimulation of fast moving images. Otherwise, it starts getting restless. That's why you see so many restless kids these days. The explanation is very straightforward. It's very scientific. The other challenge here is teachers are forced to acknowledge expectations from parents and students, which wasn't there in the good old days. Parents were very happy to send their children to school. The child is going to school, the child will learn whatever the teacher thinks is fair. End of story. Now, parents have a whole lot of expectations in terms of what is it that the child should learn, how the child should learn, what the child should learn. Essentially, the parents these days have an image of how they want the child to be molded. They're very clear. Hamara beta, hamari beti should be molded like this. We want our son, we want our daughter to behave like this, act like this, be like this, have this kind of knowledge, have this kind of personality. They're very clear about their expectations. And it's the job of the teachers to mold the child as per the expectations of the parents. Now, when you look at it, it sounds very, very unreasonable. A teacher's job is to impart knowledge, to cultivate, well, the child's personality, to develop values. It is the parent's job to play a primary role in developing the child, in molding the child into whoever they want their child to be. That's the job of parents. That's not the job of teachers, right? But this is the expectation from parents. In addition to the issues with the educational system, in addition to the way content is imparted, in addition to the havoc created by digital devices, in addition to expectations of parents and students themselves, we also need to understand that all teachers also have their own domestic stressors. They are also human beings who have families, just like all of us. They have families, they have children, they have their own stress factors, they have their own spouses, they have their own quarrels, they have their own struggles, they have their own fears, they have their own challenges, they have their own limitations in terms of their skills, in terms of their energy levels. Why do we expect that every teacher gets a good 8-9 hours of sleep in the night and comes to work every morning, comes to school every morning, school or college every morning, saying, okay, now I'm all charged. Let's make sure that we have a good day. Not possible. There's also lack of respect, lack of gratitude. How many of us respect teachers from here? Intellectually, yes. Teachers' Day, thank you. You've done a great job. But it doesn't come from here. It comes from here, intellectually. What's important is the gratitude and the respect needs to come from the heart. Every single engineer, every single pilot, every single lawyer, every single chartered accountant, every single CEO, every single vice president, every single person out there who is, say, 25 and above, doing whatever he or she is doing, including a housewife who's taking care of the children and managing the household responsibilities. Every single person who is over the age of 25 and whatever he or she is doing is able to do whatever he or she is doing because of the teachers who have laid the foundation stone. Even a railway ticketing clerk owes whatever he's doing to his or her teachers. But we never acknowledge that. We are never grateful for that. We don't respect that. We just think, okay, this is the job of teachers. This is what they've done. And that's it. This results in enormous job dissatisfaction, which is so common today. You look around, you talk to teachers, the first thing that comes out is, we are so fed up, but we are forced to do this. I speak to so many teachers on a regular basis. This is the first thing that comes. They're unhappy with the institutions, they're unhappy with the methodology, they're unhappy with the management, they're unhappy with students, they're unhappy with parents. Essentially, they're not satisfied because there's absolutely no respect. There's absolutely no respect. There's no gratitude. And it's so unfair. Now, given that these are the factors in the environment, in the external environment, which cannot be changed overnight, what is it that teachers can do to make a small difference? Two things: self-work and mindfulness. Self-work is where you work on yourself. What triggers you? What upsets you? What makes you irritable? What makes you impatient? What makes you frustrated? Understand where it is coming from. And once you are able to do that, you will become mindful of every time you get upset, every time you get frustrated, which is bound to happen. So it is not possible not to get upset. It is not possible not to get frustrated. It's not possible not to get angry. It's not possible not to get impatient. We will always, we are human beings. We will have these emotions. We will have these feelings. That's how we are structured. That's how we are configured. That's how the brain is wired. But when we get triggered, instead of reacting, can we understand why we are getting triggered so that we can probably come back to a normal state, come back to a balanced state quickly? This is this is the last slide. So we are currently, the small circle that you see is the educational system currently. It is what it is. There's no point in saying, okay, let's find out who's to be blamed. Let's not do that. It's futile. There's no point raising fingers. There's no point saying, okay, this is the reason why things are so bad. This needs to change. That person needs to change. Management needs to change. Politicians need to change. The curriculum needs to change. It's not in our hands. It's not in our hands. But we need to be clear about what is it that we want to finally move to. We want to move to an educational system which has very strong building blocks of empathy, of patience, support. The whole idea is to create respect, to encourage children, even if they are challenged. There are children who are dyslexic. There are children who have learning disabilities. There are children who have speech difficulties. There are children who have hearing difficulties. There are children who are not able to focus. They are not able to register because they didn't get breakfast in the morning. There are children who didn't get sleep last, probably the night before, and they're sleepy and they're unable to focus. It's okay. It's absolutely fine. These are children. They are not machines. We need to encourage. We need to have empathy for them. We need to support them. We need to have patience. I know teachers are trying their best, but for whatever reason, if the child is not able to absorb 100% of what you're teaching, is able to absorb 40%, 60%, 70%, there's no reason to get upset. There's no reason to get frustrated. There's no reason to get angry. It's not your fault. It's not your problem. And if the child has not understood, not learned, not able to do well in exams, it's okay. It's okay. Not everybody needs to grow up and become a vice president. Not everybody needs to grow up and become a successful lawyer. Why do we assume that good marks is equal to successful? Why do we assume that a successful, everybody needs to have a government job, everybody needs to become an IAS officer, everybody needs to become a CEO or an MP? No, no. That's not the definition of success. That's not the definition of achievement. As teachers, the job is to develop character. That is the primary job of a teacher, to develop character. But what are we doing here? Thanks to the educational system, we are encouraging competitiveness. We are encouraging students to compete with each other. The moment you start doing that, where is the question of empathy? Where is the question of patience? Where is the question of respect? If somebody is not doing well in class, there is no student who's interested saying, wait a minute, I have understood this, but my classmate is struggling. Can I help him? I don't see that happening anymore. I don't see that happening anymore. And that is where I think the educational system is failing to serve its most basic objective. The whole purpose of education is not content. The purpose of educational system is not teaching physics, chemistry, biology, maths, English, Hindi, whatever. No, the content is immaterial. That is not why children come to school. That is not the purpose. The purpose is to develop the child so that the child has a balanced, rounded personality where the child is able to think, is able to handle his or her own feelings, fears, emotions. I can't tell you the number of grown-ups, when I say grown-ups, I mean teenagers, who have done exceedingly well in school, toppers, top 10, 10th standard, top 10. When they get into college, and suddenly they're struggling because the environment is different, the expectations are different, there is no emphasis on rote learning. and suddenly they are struggling and they are not able to handle disappointment. They are not able to handle stress. They are not able to handle failure. The number of students who appear for medical exams, engineering exams every year after 12th, the percentage of these students who fail to get admission into medicine or into engineering colleges, they are unable to handle failure. And that, I think, is the biggest um, failure of the system, that the system has not been able to teach these children how to handle disappointment, how to handle failure, how to handle frustration, how to cope with difficulties, how to deal with other people when they're struggling, how to reach out to people when they feel lost. Children are not even able to reach out to others when they're feeling helpless. Look at the number of suicide cases. Look at the number of children who end up with substance disorder. I'm talking to them all the time. I'm counseling them all the time. Drugs, alcohol, porn, unable to cope with reality. This inability to cope with reality is the biggest failure. The education system needs to educate children on how to deal with reality. Life is difficult. Life is very tough. There is nobody here who's not handled failure. But the education system is looking at imparting content, physics, chemistry, biology, maths. That's secondary. That's secondary. What's important is to develop the character. The character of the child is like a building. It has columns, it has a structure, it has a foundation. That needs to be solid. That needs to be very solid. Everything else is actually just paint on the walls outside. You paint whichever color you want. You put marble, you put granite, you paint, you do whatever you want. But the structure needs to be very, very solid. The emphasis is on form. Which color? The building needs to look good, glossy, nice neon lights. But the building itself is weak. It's very shaky. No amount of painting, no amount of cladding, no amount of putting LED lights, neon lights is going to help. Sooner or later, that thing will collapse. Right? So thank you for patiently listening to me for the last half an hour. We have about 25 minutes. I'll open the forum to question and answers. My only request is um, if you can do one question at a time, otherwise it gets a little chaotic. Any questions? I'm unable to hear anyone. So I don't know if that's a problem with me or is there nobody talking?
Good evening, sir. Am I audible? Good evening, sir. Am I audible?
Yes.
Sanjeev, sir, this is Trupali here from Udgam School for Children. And I have a question. First of all, I would like to thank you for raising this very important issue of inculcating empathy and values into the classroom. And as I mentioned in the chat area, for teacher to inculcate empathy and values, I think classroom is the best opportunity, wherein we could start up with some short activities or maybe a daily interaction would help them to inculcate that. But at times, sir, I have experienced in my teaching experience of last 15 years that even though we try our level best to inculcate values at school, at times students are affected by the home environment. I have seen there are parents who disrespect the child. There are parents who maybe they don't give that opportunity to the child to speak at home. So probably that child comes to me and says, "Ma'am, फिर मैं बात कहाँ करूँगा अगर मैं class में नहीं करूँगा तो." So that is, I think that's a very challenging job for a teacher because every teacher is running behind syllabus, course completion, exam and all. So every teacher cannot give a ear to all the problems of a child which he is undergoing through. I think I just wanted to ask that if something could be done to educate parents also, that this is a joint effort to benefit the learner.
Right.
That's what my question is.
Right. Right. Absolutely. You're absolutely right, Vitali. And this is actually one of the major problems today. I go to a convent school every Monday. I volunteer there as a counselor, and I deal with both primary children and secondary children. And what you're saying is absolutely right, because the child is not being understood at home. The child comes to school, is not being understood at school. Where does the poor child go? Right? The child, and you're absolutely right, because one of the things that I realize, and because I'm a counselor, when I'm talking to these kids, especially kids who are over 10 or 12 years old, not the younger ones, but the older ones, when I ask them, how are you feeling? They are not able to reply. They're not able to reply. They find it so difficult to get in touch with their own feelings. They're not able to connect at heart level, and they're not able to express how they are feeling because it's something that they've never learned how to express, because nobody's interested in how the child is feeling. Everybody's giving instructions to the child. Ab homework karo, ab ye karo, ab wo karo. Now, so the child is simply taking instructions. Nobody's asking the child, how are you feeling? How was your day today? Are you stressed out? Is there something that's bothering you? Nobody has the patience. Parents don't have patience. Teachers don't have patience. And you're absolutely right, Krupali. This is what teachers have 10 periods of half an hour each, right? Ab usme you are dealing with 30, 40, 50, 60 kids. You have to teach them, right? But when a child comes to you and says something which is obviously related more to the family and could probably be a personal issue, you need to pause. You need to pause. And this is exactly why I'm saying mindfulness and self-worth. Understand that if you are, I don't know which subject you teach, Kripali, or are you?
Sir, I teach computer applications. So basically, these kids, those who come to me, like there was a child being a class teacher. This year I got class teachership.
Right,
So I tried out with like what are the general issues. So logically, I thought about the problem why this indiscipline issues are coming in.
right.
So there is a child who every day comes in recess and sits with me. The reason was when I scolded him for being talkative during the main subject classes, he said, "Ma'am, मैं किसके साथ बात करूँ?" I said, "You come to me in recess, talk to me. अब मेरे साथ time spend करो." But that is actually not a solution because every time he cannot spend his recess sitting with me and talking about his problems. And I cannot make 45 students sit with me. So that's what the greatest challenge comes in.
Right. Okay. Beautiful example, Krishali. Beautiful example. I'm going to take 2 minutes here because I really want everybody else to understand what what I'm trying to say, and this is applicable to everyone. You teach computer applications, right? Hmm? Now this child has come, talkative child. You scolded him, whatever, right? Now, what is your need? What is your need? Right? Right? Krupali, what is your need? You tell me, what is your need?
Basically, sir, it's like for my subject, I
Ah.
can manage those 20-25 coming to my class, teach that subject effectively and get the output. But when it comes as a class teacher, I'm just like the child's second mother. I need to make sure that the child follows ethics and values at the top rather than just being an academic topper or maybe just
Right.
being. So I would make sure that in the morning I observe what happened, I talk with the teachers, get the idea about the child's everyday main subject performances, and then I call out that particular children outside the classroom
Yeah,
to
correct.
heal them. But I think every teacher, class teacher who is teaching main subject may not get that much time to
Absolutely.
interact.
Right. So what I'm hearing is, Krupali, and correct me if I'm wrong, you're saying your job is to ensure that there is a certain minimum level of ethics that are maintained by every student. That's your need. That's your need, right? That's your need. What does the child want? What's the child's need?
Yes, here the child needed attention.
Hmm,
In few of the cases, I've seen they need attention
hmm,
because they are not given that attention at
hmm,
home.
hmm,
At times, both the parents are working. They're
hmm,
not getting time to talk to the child.
hmm,
Even I'm a parent,
hmm,
so I can understand that when I get busy with some school task, I don't get
hmm,
enough time to talk with my
hmm,
daughter, or maybe she's sharing something.
hmm,
I'm just listening and I'm not reverting back.
hmm,
So I think that's the need of a child.
hmm.
Attention. A child needs attention in the class.
Right.
Secondly, a child needs one-to-one. Most of the children feel that okay, teacher ne mera naam liya.
Hmm.
That makes them happy. So that's what I understand what the child needs.
That's part of the identity development, which is normal, where kids seek attention, and when they get attention, they feel valued, they feel worthy, they feel that I'm I'm good, I'm capable. That's identity development. But here, Rupali, what I'm trying to say is understand that there are two different factors. There is your need, which is Krupali's need, to ensure that all children have a certain minimum level of ethics and behavior. There's a child who says, I need attention. There is nobody who's paying attention to me, right? Now, you need to understand that when a child comes to you seeking attention, okay, you may feel the child is seeking attention, but that's not the complete story. That's not what it is. You need to go beyond that. And that's where mindfulness helps. Again, what the child is seeking is not attention. The child is saying, I am feeling unworthy. I am feeling uncared for. I am feeling as if I'm not important. I am feeling hurt. The child is crying inside. We look at it as, "Arey, ye to attention seeker hai." A lot of kids who are distracted and talk in the class are seeking attention this way. It doesn't matter if the teacher scolds me, at least she's paying attention to me. Some attention is better than no attention. Negative attention is better than no attention, right? Very sad, but very true, right? So when a child is coming to you, just go beyond what is obvious to you, which is the child needs attention. Beyond that is a whole lot of baggage that the child is carrying, right? The parents don't have time in today's world, most parents are working. Both parents are working. There's only one child in a lot of cases. The child feels completely abandoned. There is nobody to talk to him. There's nobody to understand. There's nobody he can share his feelings with. So the child will feel lonely, will feel sad, and at some point, the child will simply stop feeling because the child doesn't want to feel hurt. So the child stops feeling completely. And then, and this is exactly what happens when I talk to them, how are you feeling? There's no response. They are saying, मैं घर गया and there was nobody to talk. And I'm like, yes, I understand. How are you feeling about it? How do you feel when you go home and nobody talks to you? नहीं, फिर मैं सो जाता हूँ. Okay. How are you feeling about it? I can sense the child has created this huge wall and has stopped feeling. And these are the children who grow up. And even when they're 20, 30, 40, 50, they have huge issues with relationships. They have huge issues in their careers. They may be good individuals, but they don't make very good parents. Right? So again, it boils down to we just need to step back. Let go of our needs. Let go of our needs. Focus on the needs of others. So let go of your need, saying, I need to maintain this baseline. Right? Okay, so I'll just quickly go through the questions. Both suggest to complete, this is by Ritu, to complete the portion, and parents are also marked. Absolutely, absolutely. You're right. This is exactly what I highlighted. Expectations from parents, expectations from educational institutes. But understand again, this is the need of the educational institution. This is the need of parents. It's not your need. It's not your need. You be clear about what is your need. Forget others' needs. You focus on your needs. Your need should be developing the child's personality. Everything else is secondary. If you ask me today, do I remember anything that I was taught in school? Any physics, chemistry, biology, maths? Zero. I don't remember anything. But I remember very clearly how Miss Anne made me feel, how Miss Menon made me feel, how Miss Mahal made me feel. Those feelings I will carry in my heart till the day I die. Do I remember the geography I was taught? Nothing. I'm sorry, I don't remember. I couldn't care less. But I remember how they made me feel. And that is what the child will remember. Not what you're teaching him, how you're making the child feel. It's your need, right? This has to be your need. Forget what the board suggests. The board is saying because it is in the interest of the board. Is it in the interest of the child? No. The parents wants, parents again, huge problem. I want my child to top. I want my child to get into this college. I want my child to become a lawyer, become a chartered accountant. Parents are very clear about what they want their children to become. When I talk to these children and I'm like, okay, so what's your passion? What excites you? What drives you? They come up with very different answers. But parents are not asking children, what is your interest? What is your passion? What would you like to do? It's your life. It is the parents' need that the child becomes a chartered accountant. I know so many of them. I want my child to become an engineer, but ask your child, does he want to become an engineer? It's his life, not your life. The child is not born to fulfill your wishes. The child is born to live his life, fulfill his or her wishes, right?
Thank you, sir.
Impact from home environment. This is Krupali again. So we discussed this. Sanjana, how to manage stress if we feel our hard work is not appreciated. Again, hard work is not appreciated by others. If you are happy with the job you have done, you need to be happy. Validation from external sources, if it comes, well and good. But essentially, you need to be proud of what you are doing. You need to be happy with what you are doing. The child will not acknowledge, the parents will not acknowledge, the system will not acknowledge. It's okay, it doesn't matter. You are not teaching for acknowledgement. You are teaching because you have a need to create value. You have a need to make a difference. If you are happy with the value you are creating, that's good enough. At the end of the day, you are answerable to yourself, nobody else. Absolutely nobody else. This is your chosen path. Make yourself proud, and that's enough. Right? Sushmita, how are we going to educate parents? Not your problem. Not your problem. Parents' expectations come from their needs, not your needs, not needs of the children. Please understand that expectations come from needs of other people. And this is something I tell all my counseling clients. So there's a lady who is not getting along with her mother-in-law. And she says, my mother-in-law is being very unreasonable, the typical sas bahu drama. And she's like this, and she says, aisa hona chahiye, waisa hona chahiye. You are not keeping things in place. You are not. Why is your mother-in-law expecting whatever she's expecting? I don't know why she's expecting whatever she's expecting, but she's being immature. Okay. She's being immature. Fair enough. Why is she expecting whatever she's expecting? It is her need. She's trying to fulfill her need. And she is holding you responsible for fulfilling her need. It is my daughter-in-law's responsibility to fulfill my needs. How reasonable is that? How reasonable is that? It is my need, and I am holding somebody else responsible for fulfilling my needs. मेरी जरूरत है. It is not the daughter-in-law's need. It is my need. But the daughter-in-law suddenly becomes responsible for fulfilling my needs. I'm like, please understand, you were not born to fulfill others' needs. You were born to fulfill your needs. Look inside you. What are your needs? Fulfill those needs. Focus on your needs. You speak to 10 people, 10 people will tell you, do this, do that. They all have their needs. They all have their expectations. If you live in a joint family, you know this better than anybody else. The father-in-law will have expectations. The mother-in-law will have expectations. The husband will have expectations. The children will have expectations. The neighbors will have expectations. Everybody's expectations are essentially their needs. It has nothing to do with you. It has nothing to do with you. But what you do is you take on the responsibility. Oh, I have to make that person happy. Why? Why do you have to make that person happy? Make yourself happy. You're not being selfish because that person wants his or her needs to be fulfilled. Likewise, you should focus on your needs. What would make you happy? Right? But this is the way we are brought up. I have to keep everyone happy. If I keep everyone happy, everybody says, I'm a nice person. Then I'm like, okay, then I'm a nice human being. I'm a nice human being because I keep everyone happy. Your self-worth, your respect for yourself, how worthy you feel about yourself, your self-esteem, if it depends on others' validation, you will be perpetually miserable. You will be miserable all your life. Don't harm anyone. Don't harm anyone. Don't take advantage of anyone. But beyond that, you're not answerable to anyone except yourself. You're only answerable to your conscience. Sanjana, many times students take undue advantage of the empathy. How to manage it? Who wants to manage? And why do you want to manage? Who wants to manage? And why do you want to manage? Right? It's like it's like I don't know how many of you would understand this example, but when you go to a gurdwara and there is langar, there is free food. Okay, so some people sit, eat, and go. It's free, right? The food is free. There are some people who come with dabbas, so they eat and then they say dabbe mein dal ke do because we want to take it back. Uh, some people get upset. No, 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 no. You're not supposed to do that. How can you take advantage? It is for you can sit and eat as much as you want, but you can't take it home. Why? Why do you need to enforce your need for control? Nobody should take advantage. I am a nice person. Nobody should take advantage. If your need is to be generous, if your need is to be generous with whatever it is that you're doing, even if it is empathy, out of 10 people, there are 2 people who will take advantage of it. It's perfectly fine. It's not in your hands. Every morning when I go for my walk, I carry a pack of dog feed because there are dogs in the park. I'm an animal lover, so I open the pack and there are 5, 6 dogs. I randomly open the pack and the contents are strewn around. Dogs get aggressive. Some want to eat more. Some don't get to eat much. It's not equitable. It can never be equitable because some dogs are more aggressive than others. They end up eating more. It's fine. It's fine. My job is to feed. My job is not to ensure that this is for you, this is for you, this is for you, and this is for you. No. My job is to feed the half a dozen dogs. How much each one gets, it's a law of nature. Let nature decide that. Okay. And it's okay. It's absolutely fine. Surangana, we teachers are willing to be empathetic, but the challenge is syllabus. Absolutely, I agree. The system of education, how it works, how to balance. How to balance, okay, it's 7:30. Do we have a few more minutes, admin?
Hello. Yes, sir,
Hello.
we can take 2 more questions, I believe,
Okay,
if
fair enough.
possible.
Thank you so much. We'll
Yes.
take 2 more questions and then we'll wrap up. Teachers are willing to be empathetic. Yes, but the challenge is syllabus, right? Again, what are you trying to balance? The syllabus is given to you by the system, right? The educational system. But what is your job? What is your need? Is it to paint the building with a nice color, or is it to focus on developing the child's personality? If you have 50 students in the class, all 50 are different. All 50 are unique. Every single child is unique, right? Some people will grasp, some students won't. Some boys and girls will be distracted, some won't. Some will pay attention. Some will be very disciplined. Some will be very, very naughty. It's fine. It's okay. It's absolutely fine. That's the way God has created them. It's not your problem. Your job is very simple. Your job is to give them encouragement, support, empathy, patience, understanding. That's all that you have to do. And that is the only thing that will make a difference. It's not the amount of chemistry that they will learn or the amount of biology that they will learn. No, that's not going to make a difference. Even if they become biologists, even if they become physicists, what will matter is what is the personality that they have developed. And that is where you play the biggest role, not the parents. As teachers, the biggest role is how do we shape their personality? Because parents, frankly, have outsourced. When I talk to parents, they say, Hamara kaam tha to give birth to children. Now it is the teacher's responsibility. It's outsourced, completely outsourced. Kids are not our problem, teacher's problem. The parents are having a good time. The parents are going for parties. The parents are watching Netflix. Parents are busy on their mobile phones. Everything is outsourced to teachers. Not fair, not fair at all. Okay, so last question. Okay, so I'll just take one more, which is from Shivangi. How do we deal with a child who has continuous complaints and recurring aggression? Beautiful question. You tell me, how would you deal with a child? And suppose this was your son or daughter who's continuously complaining to you and is being very aggressive. How would you deal with your child?
As I've been dealing with this child, and I'm a special educator with Islam. But mainly what I feel from the child is that he just needs to be listened. So I sit with him, I listen. He has made a time that in recess that he'll come and talk to me, and all he talks is only complaints. And at times he does become aggressive. So how should I just get him to look at good things rather than just complaints.
Okay. 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 Um, when Shivangi, when you have an upset stomach, okay, when you have, let's say, food poisoning,
right?
Right. So you have an upset stomach. Your stomach is rumbling. You go to the washroom every now and then, right? Right. What is happening here? When you have an upset stomach, when you have food poisoning, until such time, whatever is causing your stomach to churn, until that thing is completely out of the system, you will feel nauseous. You will not feel like eating because your stomach is in a state of chaos, right? Okay.
Exactly.
So until such time that whatever is in your stomach is processed and is sort of discarded, is out of the system, you will not be able to eat. Anything you try to eat, you will either throw up or you will feel nauseous. Right?
Right.
It's exactly like that. When a child has continuous complaints, the child is agitated. The child is upset. The child is unable to process the feelings inside. The child is hurt. Nobody is listening to the child. The child is saying, listen, this world is not fair. I am not being treated fairly. मेरे साथ ऐसे हो रहा है, मेरे
Absolutely,
साथ
sir.
वैसे हो रहा है. उसने मुझे ऐसे कहा, उसने मुझे मारा. I hear this every Monday when I go to school, and I just smile,
Yes, sir.
right? So the thing is, unless and until whatever is hurting the child
Inside
inside,
him.
whatever is hurting the child, until that is expelled, and that is what the child is trying to do. Aggression, whether it is verbal or physical, is a manifestation of hurt. Anger is nothing but reflection of hurt. Whether you are young or
Right,
whether you are
sir.
an adult, you are hurt. If you are hurting, you will manifest it. Some people cry, some people get angry, some people throw things, some people punch bags. Everybody has a different way of manifesting aggression, but anger, frustration, jealousy, impatience, you call it whatever you want, is simply pain and hurt. As simple as that. The child is
Right.
hurting. The child is in pain. He's saying, मेरे साथ अन्याय हो रहा है. I am not being treated fairly. This is not fair. The world is not fair. And until that comes out, you cannot tell the
Right,
child,
sir.
शांत हो जा, शांत हो जा. Not going to work. Not going to work. You have to give the child time, and you have to say, yes, it must be so difficult for you. You don't have to agree with the child. Don't do that.
Right.
Right? But you need to understand that the child is only saying, hear me out, listen to me. Even if you don't agree with the child, it's okay, as long as you don't disagree. Right? Because
No,
everybody else
that's
is disagreeing. Everybody else is disagreeing.
true.
You don't disagree. Just hear him out and say, this must be really difficult for you. You
The
must be
way I
feeling.
deal with him is, sorry, sir, to cut you, but here what happens is I listen to him. I say, do you anything else do you want to talk about? But then he gets, like you said about the feeling, then he gets stuck. Like when I say, how did you feel? How did your day go? What did you learn in the morning? So basically, when I even have that circle time, this is a very particular child. That time he's not been able to express what he's feeling. Same similar as you said. So in that, how do I just mold him? I'm like just to take him to a level where he sees something good at least.
You don't have to take him to that level. He will reach that level.
Okay.
You have to
Okay.
hold a space for him. You just need to create a space where he is able to express himself. Just hold that space for him or her. Just hold that space. Allow that child to feel safe in that. It has to be a safe space, which is why I'm saying don't disagree. Don't disagree with him, because the moment you do that, the child will not feel safe. Feel, create a safe space. Hold the child in that space. And the child will express himself or herself, and the child will automatically start working towards reaching that point. You cannot take the child there. You cannot take the child there. No, that won't work. You will get frustrated. You will get frustrated.
Right. And this is a third standard child. So
I
again,
can
it is
understand. Third standard would be 8 years, right?
8 years, yes. And at this stage, if he's feeling so much hurt and all the negative feelings, then I think it's a little difficult to deal with him then.
Right, Shivani. Right, absolutely.
Oh,
okay. So
thank you so much, sir.
It was nice interacting with everyone, and I have also learned a lot in the last half an hour of our discussion. So thank you so much again, and I wish you well.
Hello. Thank you so much, sir. I would, request the audience to turn their videos on so I can take a screenshot. That is first thing. And I would like to thank you on behalf of AMA also. So, sir, can you please turn off the screen sharing which you have been doing?
Yes.
Thank you so much. I'll do that myself. Thank you, everybody. Thank you so much for attending the session. We had almost 380 participations today, but due to limitations, we only had the first 100 participations. I would like to thank Sanjay sir for his insightful session. I was listening the session and I myself learned a lot, not being a teacher or a parent. I think this is something which you should incorporate in life, I believe. So today's life lesson for me, and I guess everybody listening the session, would be, start accepting, not expecting. That is the one thing which I learned today. And I think that relates a lot to me. So I think I'll incorporate it in my life. Apart from that, sir told a lot of things like understanding a child or a student and role of a parent when it comes to students and how to deal with students. So it was an very much, insightful session. And to all the audience here, AMA is conducting series of session for teachers as it was September and Teachers Day. So apart from that, I want you all to, take active participation in that. And we have Sanjay sir's session tomorrow also. So in case if anybody wants to attend that, they can register. Tomorrow's session is challenges for teachers from if today. A successful and ideal teacher is the tomorrow's topic. Hello, I'm audible, right?
Yes.
Yes. And we have a series of event, and apart from that, we have management development trainings also. So I would, request all the teachers and everybody today active participation in everything going in AMA. Thank you so much. You have been a wonderful audience to AMA. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
It was an
Yes,
insightful
Sudha.
session. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.